So you went to your first town meeting when you were 6 years old.
Yes. Oh, I probably was there before that, but I remember the one at 6.
And it seemed to have imprinted on you. I mean, that
Yes, it was.
And what was that process like?
Well, you know, I was always interested in Frank Jellison was first selectman, and Dad became a chairman of the Board of Selectmen at one point in 1936. And I was always interested in everything that went on at those town meetings. And I wrote a letter when I was in the Navy home to my folks and said to them, I want to study town government. I want to study public administration. And that's the first, as I've reread those letters, that I'm aware that I decided early, before I went to the University of Maine, that that's what I wanted to do, was get into public administration. And I did, and finally got my degree in public administration.
Did UMO have one of the first programs in public
They
administration?
were very active. I can't say it's the first, but they were very active. Dr. Edward F. Dow was the head of the department at that time, and sponsored that, and many town managers since came out of that program.
And when you were in that program, you started as a town manager in East Corinth.
Yes.
And you were 23.
Yeah.
Weren't you the youngest town manager at the time?
Yes, there was a publicity about the fact that I was the youngest town manager in the world that year. So
well, thank God you weren't the youngest father in the world.
No, that's right.
And so then you went to Mars Hill.
After East Corinth, I went to Mars Hill. East Corinth, they said to me, you've done a wonderful job. And I had newspaper clippings saying what a great job it was. But they said nobody gets a pay raise the first year after work. Well, of course, I then went to Mars Hill for $500 or $600 more.
Yeah.
I was in Mars Hill 2+ years. We had a great life there. We loved the people. They were good to us. We stayed in the so-called teacher's home, which the town had purchased for a place that teachers could, when they hired a teacher, they could rent that building, which was right across from the town hall. So they said, in this instance, we'll let the town manager stay there. And it was a beautiful home. And your mother and I stayed there. And right after I'd gone there, one of the momentous decisions that I made, I'd been smoking for about 2 years. And just out of the blue, one day I said, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And I never did smoke again. So that was a good thing. I'd only done it for about 2 years.
That's great. And then, so from Mars Hill?
From Mars Hill, I went to Freeport, which was the toughest job that I held in my tenure as a public administrator. The Board of Selectmen were very supportive, always in back of me all the way. But for some reason, the citizens were very difficult, and that's where we had the old-fashioned town meeting. And we were going through, Freeport was going through a period of wanting to get a zoning ordinance passed, and I was a supporter of that request. And I remember one night we had a town meeting of 500 people, and they were ugly and mad, principally at the issue of zoning. But lo and behold, what is the first article in the warrant but one that says what the town manager will be paid? The selectmen recommended unanimously that I be paid $500 more. And so that was satisfactory to me, and I felt pretty good about it. And then the people got up and started questioning it, and one of the selectmen said, if you don't give him this raise, he'll leave. Lo and behold, the crowd roared, let him go, let him go. That was probably the low light of my professional career. It was very difficult. The town meeting just defeated any proposal to give me any more money that year. And of course what it did is prompted me, which I'd been thinking anyway about it, to look for another job that might be better suited to me. And as a result, about a year later, the position came open in Falmouth, a neighboring community. But Falmouth was governed by a board a town council. This was a new form of government which vested all the policy-making authority in the town council, not the town meeting. And I looked forward to serving in that post and was hired. And I got a little bit of a raise at that point and went there, and that was the best job of my career. I was 12 years in that position. The town council was the best town council that ever served in the state of Maine. I really believe it. We had a general legal counsel of the Maine Central Railroad was the chairman. We had a Casco Bank president. We had another lawyer. We had two doctors, and and a couple of other people that made up that town council. And all they wanted to do was determine policy. And they said, Oz, we'll determine policy. You simply carry it out. Very simple process. And of course, that's the theory behind the council manager plan of government in any event. And so I went there, and it fell right in line for me. And I loved those years I was in Falmouth, and I was the first one in that community, and I'm just reminded of it from looking at my old scrapbooks, that ever talked about having a council of governments in Portland, taking on the entire regional aspect of governing. And that article is in there, and it talks to me as being the leader of advocating that thing. And I had 12 wonderful years in Falmouth. I had no need to leave, and I thought, why, God, why would anybody leave this job? Well, Council of Governments got created, and it didn't do too well for 10 years or so. And lo and behold, out of that came a decision that I made to apply for the chairmanship, or the principalship, or whatever the position was called.
Executive director, wasn't it?
Executive director of the Greater Portland Council of Governments. Mm-hmm. And I applied for that and got it. Got the job and went there and got all kinds of publicity over those years. 5 years I was there at COG. It was a difficult job in the sense, although we were doing something new and different and that was benefiting the communities, there still was no really a real authority by the executive committee to raise money. They had to be approved from the individual towns. The appropriations came from each individual town. I think there were 18 of us in the Greater Portland community at that point. But we got through those years, did a lot of good things over that period of time, but I still was having some second thoughts about having gone to this position. And then I remember from Yarmouth, who was one of the towns that belonged to COG, a town council member said to me, Oz, we're looking for a new town manager. Why don't you apply? And so I applied and was hired to be town manager in Yarmouth. It was a town very similar to Falmouth. The council treated me, they were a little bit politically inclined, but they treated me the same as they had treated me, as I had been treated in Falmouth. It was just a great run that I had in that community, and after another 12 years there, each time we bought a house in Freeport, sold it, made a little money, bought a house in Falmouth and sold it, made a little bit of money. Then we bought a house in Yarmouth, and when we left there, of course, we sold it, made a little bit of money on that. And so then we moved away, and your mother had got her 25 years. My wife, I should be mother, my mother of my children, got her degree and taught for 25 years in Westbrook High School as a teacher, very, very successful. And then we moved back to Surrey and built a new waterfront home on Newbury Neck in Surrey, and have lived happily ever after.